This Notion calculator is the only tool you'll ever need to generate precise timelines and pricing for your freelance projects. And all of this without having to ever risk underbidding and losing money or overbidding and losing clients. And number one, I'll walk you through how to generate the exact pricing and timeline in minutes, whether you do it on the spot during a discovery call with a client or setting up a quote for a proposal later in the process. And number two, I'll show you how to adjust your rates using the tool's built-in recommendation system. This will give you a clear understanding of when to raise your prices. And then in number three, I'll walk you through how to adjust it with your own services. And while I'm using web design as an example, if you're delivering any type of creative or freelance work, this will apply to you as well. So by the end of this video, I want to remove the guesswork out of pricing and give you a behind the scenes look at real numbers that turn quoting clients from a nightmare to an enjoyable experience you'll be eager to repeat. So let's take the discovery call example. You ask your client about their problems, you identify their goals and learn a little bit more about their budget. Now it's time to discuss scope, and this is where the Notion calculator comes in. By the way, all the templates I'm using here are available below, including the script, the discovery questionnaire, plus two more Notion resources that I'll introduce you in a moment. So if you want to save time implementing everything you learn here, you can grab them below. But let's continue with the walkthrough. First, you should ask yourself, what's the maximum number of clients I can take at any given time? For me, it's 3, and this is my limit for maintaining both high quality work and dedicating enough time to each project. And this is important because it's actually influencing the time estimation. So if I change the number of active clients to 2, the timeline changes as well because I have more time to dedicate to that particular client. If I change it again to 3, this updates in the time estimation tab as well. The second question you should ask yourself is, how many hours per week can I dedicate to client work? I typically work 70 hours with around 40 hours allocated to client work each week. So that number will be added in here. And the great news is that once you set these two, you won't need to adjust them often. Instead, you can jump right into the calculator. So let's go through a typical project. So the client needs a landing page, which is the minimum engagement fee, at least in my case, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later. They also need a blog and a case studies page. Both pages are CMS pages. And if you look over here in the project summary, you can already see everything we check here starts to populate. Moving further, the CMS is simple, so I'll check that. They also come from WordPress, but I'm actually working in Webflow or Framer, so I'm going to check the site migration as well. Now for the number of blog articles, they have 25 to transfer, so we change that and then check the box. They want basic interactions for all 3 pages, plus Rive motion for their benefit section and hero section, which will be around 3 elements, so I'll check the moderate one. They need Google Analytics and Hotjar integrations for tracking website data. They're flexible with the time, so no rush fee needed, and no buffer time as well, because there's nothing complex or new that I need to know to be able to finish this project. So I'll keep these 2 unchecked as well. This client may bring future projects, so it unlocks new opportunities. Plus, it's also a niche that I'm excited to work in, and I also know a lot about. So I'll check the project weight as well. And finally, don't forget to account for your taxes, so you check this as well. And that is it. Now that you know exactly how to generate a timeline and pricing for your projects in minutes, it's time to hit the refresh button and get everything back to the minimum engagement fee. Everything refreshed, and now about the fee. This fee is what helps you avoid getting into long interactions with unqualified leads that usually end up in a lot of wasted time and energy. Over the years, I've learned this the hard way, and I'm telling you this right now because respecting your time should be a priority. Maybe not in the early stages, but the problem is that once you lose that time, it's lost forever. Alright, so let's move to number 2 and discuss how you can adjust your rates inside the calculator. And to best showcase this to you, I'll start with a practical example of adding a new service. Let's say you just started learning 3D custom graphics. Now to edit, you saw that I just clicked on new, and you can also see that some of the properties are already auto-populated. And that happened because each of these sections, here and here and here, have a default template that will auto-populate some of the fields to give you a helping hand. Now each section is different, so it's important to know where to add your services. So I just renamed the service. Here you can add the value, and here you can add the time it takes. Now you have to do it at least once to know how much it takes, and for this I'll actually include a Notion time tracker as well that you'll find in the bundle below to help you track your time for projects or any other work. You can see it right here. Alright, so you know where to add the values, but the question is how to price this. Where do I start? If you look here at top, you can see this guided view. If you click it, you'll find a new property popping up that tells you some extra details. Now the first thing you need to include is, as I said earlier, you need to include the time. So let's say you usually work 8 hours to deliver a 3D custom graphics pack. And now here you see that a price popped up. But where do these recommendations come from? Let's move to the sidebar for a moment. And here you have a toggle for rate. If you open this up, you can see two values. This is your rate goal, it's the income target that you aim to achieve. And below is an auto-generated rate based on the services you checked so far. At the moment, only the minimum engagement fee is checked. And that is usually lowered to serve as an entry point in case someone wants more. Because, for example, one of my unique selling points is motion graphics, where the value per hour of work is actually higher. And if you look over here, the same for the site migration. But back to our example. I start with the recommended price, which sets the hourly rate to $70 or any custom goal that you've added. So $560. However, in our example, 3D graphics is a new skill, so it wouldn't be fair to charge the goal amount. So I start a little bit lower and a little bit under the generated rate. So I'll start by cutting this in half, which already calculated the current item rate. So for these 3D custom graphics, if it takes 8 hours and you price it at $280, it will be around $35 per hour. And here below is the guide. So gradually, as you get better at the skill, you can adjust it, and you can increase your rates in two ways. You can either practice it more to be able to do it faster for the same amount of money. So in that case, you'll only adjust the time. So let's say you can do it in 4 hours. And you can see you just double the rate. Or you can learn more about that skill to understand the nuances and provide more value, allowing you to increase the price from here. Let's say $350. In the end, the goal is to crank up both these two levers as much as you can. But again, you should do this obviously in an ethical way, especially if it's a new skill. Now, for the skills that you already have, it's about balancing the time it takes, your current rate, and your goal rate. And with this guidance, you can pretty much start pricing your services with confidence. If you're brand new to web design, you can start with a base of $25-30 and start learning more skills that differentiate you. Learn copywriting, master a no-code builder, understand basic marketing and human behavior. The idea is to stack skill over skill and become more valuable, because the more value you can bring, the more you can charge. But there's more to pricing, and I want to address a problem I encountered when I just started out, which is how do you feel about charging more? Pricing was a dreadful subject to me, and I constantly asked myself if I even deserved to charge premium prices. I saw people on Twitter landing $50,000 projects, $100,000 projects, and I thought to myself, how is that even possible? The first shift I made to change that reality I was living in was to move from pricing based on how I feel to pricing based on logical, objective impact. The weight of the problem you can solve has a lot of weight in what determines the price. This comes with experience, but simply knowing what's the right questions to ask to the right type of client is crucial. For example, how much traffic do you get per month? What's the current lead conversion rate? How long does it take to close a lead? And what's the lifetime value of a customer? These numbers allow you to directly link your work to revenue. And this is when pricing stops being a guessing game and starts becoming an investment calculation. Let's take, for example, a SaaS with 50,000 users at 1% conversion rate. This brings in 500 paid users per month. Now, if each plan is at $40, this means that the monthly recurring revenue is $20,000. Now, if you are able to optimize their website and convert this 1% into 2%, this actually doubles their monthly recurring revenue. And for this example's sake, that would be an extra $240K per year from just one website. And this is why some projects are worth $50,000. Companies invest this amount of money in websites because they're not just paying for design. They're paying for a conversion engine that actually brings real results. The takeaway is you don't have to feel bad for charging more. Just don't sell yourself too short. You already know how to set your rates. You understand how to check the boxes to populate the project summary, but you may still be wondering, 3D graphics can be priced like that? And yeah, I understand we need a little bit more granularity. So here is where Stat 3 comes in, and that's why we have separate sections. So the key features, the general one, is exactly as it sounds. For general or global features that are related usually to bigger parts of the website. Below we have another one that says items. Let me show you how to make your graphic services more granular so the price and timeline make total sense. So first of all, I'll go ahead and delete the one from the previous section. Then I'll head over here to the new page and create another entry. Then we can rename it to custom 3D. And you can click here over the toggle to add some sub items. We can add easy, moderate, advanced. And what I recommend you to do here is to actually write a part of the actual parent name, and I'll show you why. If you also include the name, it will be easier to identify it. And because we are setting this up, the minimalist view is not enough, so I'll move to the guided one. And as you can see, the guided version have a lot more properties already populated. Given this is just a parent element, I can remove this too. And we are left with the options. I always recommend you, when you're adding a new service to the items section, to start with one, and you can do that for all of them. Would take, let's say, around 1 hour. We'll add directly 35, because again, this is a new skill. And then what you'll have to do is to repeat this for each of the options. And to also demonstrate you what this info data is doing, if you say 10, it will calculate the total number of hours and the amount of dollars for 10 items that are priced at 35 and which take 1 hour. And that's it. you're done adding a new service in this particular section. If we move a little bit down, you can see the integrations. And you can also see that besides hours, we also have minutes. And if we move to the guided view, you can see that the recommendations are taken into account. So where you have minutes, you will also have recommendations in minutes, and where you have hours, you'll have them in hours. Now, please note that not always what you see as recommended will generate a perfect one-to-one rate goal ratio, because there's rounding involved in this formula. We have rounding here, we have rounding here, and there are a few more areas where we have rounding. So, for example, if I set this to 43, it'll be close to 70, but not exactly 70. Now, regarding the formulas, you'll need to be careful what you edit. And also, to make it easier for you, I included tooltips for some of the properties, so you can customize the calculator as much as you want and still have full control over it. So where you see this message, it means you shouldn't make too many changes to ensure you don't break the system. And before I move to percentages, I want to show you one more thing for the pages section. So these are pretty straightforward. When you create a new item, what you'll see happening is the checkbox is already checked, and you also have the value, the data type of the value, the time, and the data type of the time already populated. And I did it like this because if you need extra pages that are not included in here during a discovery call, for example, you won't need to waste time populating everything. So you can move faster through the setup, because as you can see, it was already included in the timeline and to the final pricing. Now, if you want to edit these values, you can do so by hovering here. And these are the templates that I mentioned. You can click edit. And here you can change the value, the time value, the data type, and any other details that are related to this particular item. All right, so being back to the key features, I'd like to add one more thing. I know a lot of designers are moving from WordPress to Webflow or Framer. So to make your life easier, I'll add my personal checklist for everything I consider when implementing this part. It's pretty detailed in the sense that you have to follow a lot of little steps, but it can be done quite quick and add a couple $100. Now, please know that this particular checklist is more for a Webflow migration, but the same principles apply to any other builder. And on top of this, I'll also include my technical SEO checklist, because some of these steps overlap, so it only made sense to include that as well. You'll find all of these in the template bundle below. And finally, we have percentages, which are structured in two different sections. This one right here, as the title says, will affect time. Take the buffer item, for example. You'll need to work for that time, so it only makes sense to include it in the timeline. And let me demonstrate with $2,000. So I'll remove this. And so once I check it, it will add 8 hours and $400. And then we have percentages that are not affecting time, like project weight or taxes, and they don't do it because there's no direct correlation to the time frame, which is why they are added in this particular section. The reason I want to make this clear to you is because if you want to add more items, more new items to any of these sections, it's important to know where to add them to ensure the calculations are done as expected. Now, one more thing that it's pretty important is that the calculations are done at base value. And here you can see it in the tab that says variables. So you have a base price and you have a final price. The base value is the sum of checked items that are not percentages. So in this situation, minus 10% will still reduce $200. Same goes for the project weight, which means that the percentages don't stack. Now these are actually reducing the value, but if we go here, we have 20% and 10%, which add up to 2,600. Now the reason I'm doing it like this is because It's the industry norm and also generates fairer margins. Otherwise, stacking percentages artificially inflates costs and make prices seem unjustified, which I believe is unethical. The last view is the extended view, where you can include additional details like questions for the client or breakdown of the services and anything else you need for a smooth interaction when you're in a meeting. It's similar to the minimalist view, but we have this notes area which offers extra support in case stress kicks in, so you can confidently break down these services to your client. One quick tip is you can click on the actual notes to open that up, or you can wrap the column to see them without having to click. I like this one a little bit more. One pro tip here is to link each feature with a benefit. Clients care less about what it does and much more about how it supports their goals and how it solves their problems. So instead of simply saying you get Rive animations, you could say how they enhance storytelling, ensuring that not only they create a unique differentiator from all other websites out there, but also makes their website more memorable, so prospects remember them when the time comes to make a buying decision. Instead of just saying 3 CMS pages, you can say a simple interface for 3 of your unique pages that allow anyone on your team to update the website and add articles without having to pay a developer for every single change. When you say it like this, the perceived value of your features increases dramatically, making it easier for them to say yes to your offer on the spot. Given how important this is, I'm already planning to include something like this into the calculator, and this will mean another section which will link the feature to the benefit. And when you check one particular feature, not only to show it right here, but to also resurface the benefit that you associate with it. And don't worry, I'll make sure that you'll know when the update happens, so you can start benefiting yourself from the new changes. But until then, you can use this extended view to add notes, questions, or any other details you find relevant. So after watching this video, you now have the knowledge to set your prices in a way that reflect your value and makes the quoting process actually enjoyable. Now, in the next video, I want to talk about onboarding and how I use a Notion client portal to impress my clients, to minimize revisions, and actually make them enjoy the process, so everything is easier both for them and for me. I plan to hold nothing back, so if this is something you want to see, just comment client portal below so I know you're interested.